so everybody, thank you again for joining. Sorry for the confusion in the room. Just moving forward, just stick with the program. You know, the program is always right, and we'll keep it that way. But without much further ado, I have the amazing BAFTA winner, PC Williams, with Daniel Peters, and the room is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I like it. Amazing. I'll take it.
I mean, I feel like we should have like some fanfare, like it's Eula Coachella, it's the whole Beyonce smoke lights.
Oh, where are my smoking lights?
Yeah.
We just started now.
Oh. I was like, huh? So less smoke and mirrors. Actually, no, more of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, before we start, I did want to say thank you to everyone for coming to join our conversation, and I hope that it's a conversation amongst us all as opposed to just me and Daniel, although we can talk for days, but I feel like you guys might have something interesting to add, and I know that there's loads of options of things that you could be doing, so I really appreciate you all being here to listen to what we have to say, so thank you.
And that's both online and in person.
Of course, online counts too.
I'm your supporting act today. Like literally, I feel like the Kelly or the Michelle right now. It's
I'll give you Kelly. I'll give you Kelly.
Fine. Normally I just have Beyonce. Welcome to today's talk, which is Unseen on Screen Costume Design, or a focus on costume design. As we've heard, we're joined by the wonderful PC Williams, who recently won a Bafta. How was that actually?
Surreal. It was. So I was chatting to Heather outside, and because I was saying how I've not been in this building since I stopped teaching. And I think I stopped, my last year of teaching was the first lockdown, and I realized I just didn't enjoy that way of learning or teaching, and so it just wasn't for me. And also I was just I had lots of like shows that I was working on, and it just, the time-wise didn't work, but so we were saying it's three years ago. She's like, so in 3 years, you've gone from starting a career to winning a BAFTA.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, actually, that's kind of what's happened. So it's it's mental, but I'm very grateful. I feel very blessed.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, look, you won that for an incredible show. We Are Lady Parts on Channel 4, or which aired on Channel 4. Are there any other awards that you're looking at in your sights?
Babe,
EGOT.
Listen, you don't want me to start speaking into my future because it's massive. But no, I think, I was just saying how like I feel really blessed in the jobs that I'm doing at the minute, and like, I've just, on Friday we just wrapped my last film, which stars like Jodie Comer and Benedict Cumberbatch and Mark Strong, and just working with this caliber of actors. It was like an all-female like heads of department, so director, producers, production designers, like it was just, I feel there is so much more to come. There's so much that we've, this year has been, the last 2 years have been like manic. And I can't wait for everyone to see the stuff that we've been doing, because I think, when they see it, then that will answer your question.
But it's also just to the point you just made, is that visibility of diversity and inclusion, not just in front of the camera, but also behind the scenes. Yeah. Because I think that's often where we have a lot of the work to do.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of push after the BLM protests from advertising, from TV, just being like, oh, we need to have more black and brown faces on screen. And you'd often go to these jobs and they'd have like the most diverse casting, and I'd be the only person of color who's like a head of department. And I'm like, how are we making these commercials that we're targeting black and brown kids with a new phone, with this, with that, but you're not having anyone
on the team,
and also you're not having anyone in like a position of power on the team.
Yeah.
You might have a couple of runners and then one head of department, or you'll have no heads of department and loads of runners. It's like you can't be what you don't see. And actually the challenge that we have in our industry is now not necessarily diversifying what's on screen, but diversifying behind the screen, whether that's women, whether that's minorities, whether that's LGBTQIA+. It's about making sure that every voice is being added to that cooking pot of storytelling.
Yeah.
Because that's when the best stories are going to happen,
100%. And it's that annoying thing of the higher up to the top that we get, the diversity thins out. But actually, without going too deep into that, I think it's really important that we kind of look back at your career without this seeming like this is your life. But I could have harmonized that better. But the reality being that, you didn't start out as a costume designer. And actually, you said to me the other day, and I was like, why are you calling yourself an embryo for? But I get it, especially to the point you made before that actually, you've been doing this for 3 years now. But actually, your career really started in a more traditional sense of styling.
Yeah.
Very important thing, because it's all about having that sense of identity, that true sense of, or authentic sense of representation.
A sense of self.
A sense of self.
Because I can't bring anything other than myself to any project.
Yeah.
So to have a real true understanding of what it is that I like, but also be open to being inspired by others, I think it makes for stuff that I've done and the way that it looks,
Yeah, because did we meet at Selfridges?
I think we did meet at Selfridges.
Because I didn't realize that Irene also worked at Selfridges.
She did work at Selfridges.
And somebody was telling me this the other day, and I was like,
Toby worked at Selfridges.
Everybody
worked at Selfridges.
Anybody else worked at Selfridges? Like, it's been a foundation, but it's like, for me, I know that getting to touch product and be around consumers helped me in what I do. And I think also seeing the way that people dress in some way possibly influenced.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's been ages since I've been off work. And so this week has been like my first week of being off. And I've just got those like Boris bikes. No, not Boris bikes, the Lime bikes.
Yeah.
And I just like riding around Dalston and just looking at people. And they are fascinating, even when they think that they're not being fascinating, like every decision, everyone has left their house wearing something that they have chosen that day.
Yeah.
And I want to know what that says. Yeah. I want to know why they've chosen it. I'm interested in the stories that we're trying to tell, the way in which you come into this building. Outside of this building, everyone is so individual. Inside this building, it becomes another homogenous pop. Right. Do you know what I mean? But it's like from your own home space to getting to that space where you all get to create and be creative together. You are telling the world, this is what it is that I do, and this is how and so I love just getting to like watch people and like look at what they're doing, how they move, and yeah.
I mean, I felt self-conscious leaving the house in this cardigan today because I was like, is it too much walking through the streets of Peckham? Right, like literally, like people sometimes look at you like you're the Antichrist because you're wearing something that they don't necessarily understand. So even though it's just a simple pink cardigan with an Argyle print, I was like, oh my God, are people looking at me? But then actually I got to the office and I was like, forget it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about anyone else's opinion.
You like it.
I like it. And I paid a lot for it. But kind of now going into your space of being a creative director, how would you describe that as a role?
Costume design.
Sorry. Costume design.
Although I could be a creative director.
Well, you might
maybe in the future.
Next time.
Well, how would I describe my role? My role, within the context of film and TV, because it's different in different places. Within the context of film and TV, my role is to help interpret a script to bring a character to life. So I work alongside the director, the production designer, the hair and makeup designer, and the actor to flesh out this being that starts off as words on a piece of paper, and they become a living, breathing human on the screen. And so it's my job to help make those decisions that create that individual. And I'm always like really reticent to say that I'm a costume designer, because although I design costumes, I actually curate wardrobes. I curate a character's wardrobe, and then we build their costumes from that wardrobe of stuff. I take my styling background into how I make my costumes. And I do everything in reverse. Like all of my illustrations are done at the end of the film, and I choose my favorite costumes to then illustrate. Be like, yes, this is the design that turned out into this. I'm like working back. But my team, we buy so much stuff, and we cull it in the studio, and I take a rail and a half into an actor, and we just start talking about through my boards and through the pieces, and we pull out the bits that we like, and the bits that they don't like get shoved, and we start to build outfits based off of those selects. And then we meet again in a couple of weeks when I've had a bit of time to think about their response, to think about my response in hindsight. What do I like? What do I think's not working? What feels too loud? To then go back to the production designer and talk about the sets, the locations, what is their home space like? What kind of colours are you using on the wall? What's their sofa like?
Mm.
What is hair and makeup? What are you thinking about the haircut? What does that say about the person? Is someone in a mullet really going to wear a suit, or is someone in a mullet more likely to wear a leather jacket? Like those sorts of things. Then we come back and we start to really hone in on who this character is and how we want to collectively tell their story.
And who has like the final say on a costume choice, as it were?
So I think that's a really hard question to answer, because I don't think it's about who has the final say. I know that nothing goes on screen that I hate. So nothing's going to go on screen that I don't like, regardless of whether everyone else likes it. Because at the end of the day, it's my costume design.
Yeah.
But it is a collaborative thing. So I might not necessarily be 100% about this particular costume, but there's no point about me fighting about something that's on 1/8 of a page that you're going to see for all of 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Whereas I want to fight about a costume that is going to have 2/8 of a page, that's going to take up 5 minutes of screen time, that to me tells you more about that individual than like a flashback, shot. So it's learning when to take an L and learning when to fight your battles, and being humble. It's not about me, it's about our story.
Yeah.
So at some point, my ego takes the back seat and the story is all encompassing. And if it's better for the story that this person wears all black, fuck it, let them wear all black.
Yeah, and it's that collaboration.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I've come to learn that actually collaboration is key to the work that I do.
Yeah.
I can't do everything within my business. I need to have different people who are the moving parts.
It's a team. It's a team game. I talk about it a lot. People always say that they see my team a lot on Instagram, because there's literally the only people that they're literally the only people that I like Instagram about. But I am so grateful to every one of them, because they all have invested or are continuing to invest themselves into me.
Yeah.
But I'm always reinvesting myself into them.
Yeah.
I can't do what I do without Ray, without Naz, without Misty, without Jay, without Margaret, without Yimmy, without Cheyenne, these amazing people who are, some of them didn't even, some of them, I was their first job in costume. They kind of were like, I don't really know. I feel like I want to tell stories and I like clothes, but I've never worked in this before. I was a teacher, but I can be on time and I can help. And now they're, going off and growing up the ladder and working on projects without me and roles more senior than the roles they were with me on. And I look at them and I'm like, I can get as many Baftas or whatever other awards come my way, but all of the awards that are really going to count for me is the awards that those guys get, because that I had a real part in playing, and it's beyond me. Yeah.
And in general, what's your favorite part of the process of
Research.
costume? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because when you get to set, it's so boring. It's
You're
like
kind of
just
sat
watching
there,
the
right?
same thing over and over and over again. I'm like, oh, also my job is done.
Yeah.
By the time it gets in front of the camera on set, I'm not designing anything. They're now just maintaining the costume. And my ADHD cannot stand to be bored. So I'm just like, all the bits before, when you're figuring out, when you're problem solving, I did a film which is out at the beginning of next year called Polite Society. And it's with a team from Lady Parts. So they're the same director, same production designer, same hair and makeup designer, but a different DOP. And it's a film about a young Southeast Asian girl, who's trying to stop her sister's marriage to this guy. And it's kind of like a mix between Mother-in-Law, the Jennifer Lopez,
film.
hilarious film, also stupid but hilarious. A combination of that, some kung fu film, and Bend It Like Beckham. It's just weird, funny, lots of martial arts, lots of weird stuff. But I didn't know anything about Southeast Asian weddings, about Eid, about the different styles of Southeast Asian dress. So get into research all of that, get into work with factories in Pakistan to make my dream diamante encrusted wedding dress, and have that, get into work with actors from Bollywood who are coming over to the UK and talking to them. One of our actors, Nimra Bhushan. Nimra didn't start acting. She was in her mid to late 40s. She's just about to, early 50s. She's about to hit 60, I think. She's the most inspiring woman I've had to come in contact with on set, you know, and I get to like learn from her.
Yeah.
I get to be like, oh, this is what I'm thinking about your character. And she's like, but you know, if lady of this would be like this, and have you looked about this? And I've got this friend who does this design, and all of that, that's the best part about costume design. It's about the learning, about the getting to really like, I've got an idea, but let's us 10 get together and see where this idea can grow, and figuring that out together. Like, yeah, it's my favorite bit.
And again, it goes back to that word of collaboration.
Yeah.
But looking at the work that you've been working on recently, there's a lot of variation across it. But I guess the real question is, how do you personally choose the projects that you work on?
So I think I always am interested in stories that position people of color and women in spaces of positivity and in spaces of autonomy, and not as sob stories or as victims. And so I've done 3 films this year. The first one was Polite Society, which is a Southeast Asian based film, but it's all Southeast Asians from the UK. Then I did Daniel Kaluuya's film called The Kitchen, which has got like Kano, lots of young, brilliant, talented actors like Hope from Top Boy, Cristal, Backrow G, Rasak, Arinze, like these just amazing young British talent, like black and brown talent. A really amazing kid called Jediah Beneman, who'd never been in anything before, and it's his first thing, and he's like playing the lead, you know. And that was directed by a guy called Kibwe Tavares, and it's a story about black male relationships, father and like fatherhood, and I think it's also a story that's based in the reality of outsiderness, like poverty, you know, like the fact that like you've got a lot of young black and brown kids in London who live in estates, who live without access to adequate education, adequate housing, adequate healthcare, and the lack of those things affects their lives, but also in spite of those things, there's still community, and there is still love, and there is still culture. And so telling a story that's about those, like playing alongside one another. And then this film about, you know, the film I just did with Jodie, which is about climate change and about a mother's journey over a year to protect her child whilst the UK goes into a series of flash floods and everyone's having to basically live on this island like as refugees.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. But they're all stories that I think are important to tell and don't feed into a cliche. Like I think it's really important that I don't feed into I'm not a cliche, therefore I don't want to tell stories that are reflective of, also we're much more than cliches, you know. Like I was saying to my friend about when I was thinking about whether I was going to do this film with Jodie, I was like, I don't know, I think that, you know, I'm a bit hesitant about doing an entirely white film. I think there's so many of them, and I kind of want to be able to put my energy into projects that say things about things other than whiteness. But she said to me, my mate MJ, who actually won an Emmy this year for Best Director, she said to me, PC, you are smashing it at what you're doing, but don't let your fear of only wanting to promote black and brown voices stop you from taking jobs that can inspire others to also able to reach, right? So like we're so often put up as the people who will design all the road films, all the hip hop films, all the like gang stuff. And so you actually don't see very much, like there's a girl called Lauren who designed Sanditon, apart from her, and Colleen who designed Industry, but apart from then, you don't really see black designers doing projects that aren't about blackness or crime or criminality. And so to put yourself into that position, I am now showing other people coming up that you don't have to take that Top Boy. You don't have to, and that's no disrespect to Top Boy.
Do Top Boy?
You know what I mean? You don't have to take, because Lauren actually did Top Boy and then she did Sanditon. So it's like, but you can aspire for other than that. You can aspire for different and that's okay, you know. So yeah.
But that, like, with that, it's like, not to make it about me, but my first head office job was at Burberry, and a lot of people would have seen that as not necessarily being a space for me. But that's the foundation of my career, because actually I still dine out on that. Like, genuinely, I still eat out on the fact I went to Burberry. But like, that was a positioner for me.
Yeah.
That opened me up to different types of people in the work environment, the work environment in general. And I think that's so important because it pushed me further.
You're taken out of what's comfortable. And actually, the only way you can grow is by being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So too often we stay in a place that's really comfortable for us. Like, you know, I could have carried on styling with music artists and doing that, you know, like with my eyes shut.
Yeah.
But there's no real growth for me as an individual. I love the fact that every day I get to go into work and I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know like what problem's going to come out my way. I don't know what sort of like nonsense someone in my team is going to tell me that's just going to push me over the edge. But like, I'm ready for it because I know that every day I'm living, you know, and every day I'm getting to perfect this one life that I've been given, and I get to perfect it by making mistakes, but by trusting that, like, if I trust the process won't fail me.
And the mistakes are a learning opportunity, to be fair.
Always.
Like, you know, I've had a company that failed, but like, to be fair, you get back up and it's like, great, that was a learning point. I know what not to do.
All of the things that happen that allowed your company to fail, you won't make that same mistake again.
Yeah.
And you will learn, okay, so if that's how I did it this time, I'm going to make sure I don't do that, but also take what I've learned from that. Like, I need to do it like this instead, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, failing I don't think that anyone, you know, is perfect. And I think that we put a lot of emphasis on being perfect. And I think what I really like about the job that we have is that it's not perfect. Every day is like, there's some other fuckery.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but that's fine. This is not the end of the world. What solutions do we have? How can we fix it? Our actors told you they're a size 8 and they come to your studio and you're like, sis, if you're a size 8, I'm a size 00. But now that you're here, we have to make something work. So like, what are we going to do? You know, like that happens all the time. People love to lie about what dress size they wear.
Yeah, I do. I'm a 2.
But I'm like, I'm gonna know when I see you.
Exactly.
And then you're gonna have wasted like loads of time because nothing's gonna
energy.
Someone actually said to us, they said that they were a size 8, 10, and then they came and they were about a 14, 16. She was like, oh, do you know what? It's been locked down and I haven't really I've just been wearing tracksuits. I've not actually noticed. And I was like, okay, great. Okay. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, we're gonna slightly shift the tone or the topic of the conversation slightly to looking at the industry, especially as with you being inside. So next question for you is, why do we see a lack of ethnic or underrepresented talent in this space of, you know, costume design, in your opinion?
I think a lot of it is access. So I think once you're in the industry of costume design, it's really easy to go from one job to another job to another job to another job because it's about word of mouth, right? If you're good, if I've got a good trainee and I know that my mate's about to start a new project and they're looking for a trainee, you should take my trainee. She's amazing. We're just about to finish. I can actually let her go a week early if you wanted. It's about, but until you actually get into the space, it feels really alien and it feels like you're on your own and there's no one around who can help open any doors. So I think a lot of it is about access. A lot of young Black and brown people, and I do a lot of mentoring, they don't have the access to professionals who work in industry to even just have a conversation. Because like, I've just finished my degree and I'd really like to go into costume design, but I don't know like what to do. And I'm like, have you looked at like trainee roles? Have you looked at screen skills? No, what's that? So there's also the education. And I think like until recently, costume design was looked at as like the ugly sister of fashion design. Oh God. And I remember, and everyone in here is going to know that this is true, but you would be on the fashion program or the design program and you'd like think that you've come up with something really amazing. And your teacher would be like, that's costume, not fashion. And you're like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's come from my mind. But there is a thing of like sometimes people look down on costume because it doesn't seem as fabulous as fashion. But I think that the world of costume and the types of shows that are being made lend themselves well to people who aren't going to take that period approach to design, who want to have a more of like a fun, eclectic approach to things. And so I think within education, we can do more to enable people to know that there are other routes to take.
Yeah.
And that costume doesn't just mean going and working at the theatre, but costume can be for screen and it can be subtle and it can be designed. You know, you look at films like I Am Love, like so beautifully designed and so quiet, but that is costume design at its most perfect.
Yeah.
You know? So I think a lot of it is about education, it's about access, and then there's the monetary like stuff, right? So a lot of productions now won't have unpaid internships because everyone who's working should be paid because that's just common sense.
We've all got bills to pay at the end of the day.
So but there are programs called trainees, like skills programs, where you get paid £650 a week to go onto a set and to learn from a costume designer, a supervisor on the floor. If people knew that existed, and so many of those pockets of money are set aside specifically for black and brown kids. If they knew that existed, you'd have more people going in. And then there's the final thing, which is feeling alienated in a space. So it's one thing to finally get your leg in the space, but then there's no one who looks like you there.
Yeah.
So you're placed in an entirely white team, entirely middle-class team.
Yeah.
And no one can assimilate with you. No one gets your jokes. No one gets your references. You're kind of, you're too loud. It's like, I'm not being loud. I'm just talking in my regular voice.
Yeah.
You know, like those sorts of things. So we as POCs in the industry need to do more with employing other POCs. So like my team is never less than 50% POC. And actually I say 50%, it's a lie, it's probably about 70%.
Right.
And like, I noticed, the other day I was like, I don't have any straight men working for me. And my team were like, oh, that's the least of our problems.
Yeah.
Right. We're doing good, P, you know, like I make sure that, and I also like think that sometimes people don't know what they want to do until they're a little bit older, and we have to take a chance on people.
Yeah.
People are coming from fashion production who want to get into costume, and no one's going to give them a job because they're like in their mid-40s.
Yeah.
And they've never been in a costume set, on a film set, a TV set. Come and work for us. Come work for me.
And it's like, it doesn't mean you can't pivot just
It
because
doesn't mean you can't pivot because you have skills. You've had a job. You've had a career.
Yeah.
Your whole life.
Yeah.
You now just want to make a change.
Yeah.
It takes someone taking a chance on you to get you in, you know? And a lady this year, Nicole, amazing. I mean, once she has her breakfast and her coffee, she's great. And she's like the most hardworking woman. I want to say mid-40s, could be older because she's got incredible skin. But every day she was just like, I'm so thankful to be here. I'm so grateful to be here. What do you guys need me to do? Nothing was too small. Nothing was too... I also know that I have a team we're like a unicorn because I'm making sure that I don't just say all these things which sound cute and everyone will be like, oh, well done. She's like really, but I live by what I'm talking about.
But you can see that just in the way that you've spoken today, because actually the amount of people that you've name checked, not in a sense of name dropping, but talking about your peers who you respect and who you've seen on the come up, and actually that's super important because actually we can just sit here and talk about ourselves, and that's not the point. Because actually, how do we uplift the community? It's by sharing, and it's about collaborating, and that's what I think is really wonderful about what you've been talking about so far.
Yeah.
And you know, looking at your team, you know, yes, again, we do see a lot of them on social media. But I think that's important because it's the visibility. It's not just you.
No.
You're not trying to sell this image of I'm the person that does every single part of this.
No.
You've got a team.
Yeah.
Just thinking about kind of breaking down barriers and walls. How do you use your work in TV and film to do that?
I think that I'm always told that I'm really straightforward in talking. I get produced, and you know, when they say it, I'm like, I don't know if you're saying it in a nice way or if it's like a slightly backhanded compliment, but I'm going to take it and run with it. But I'm always told you're never backwards in coming forward when it comes to with producers, with PMs. I have a high. My dad has a really high like moral compass for some reason, and he always is like, you know, you can't just say something if you're not prepared to do that thing. And I've taken that in my approach to life. I don't just say, let's make sure we're hiring more people of color, more young, more people from backgrounds that aren't anything to do with what it is that we're doing, but who have an interest. I'm actually doing those things.
Yeah.
There are things that and I think I take that from my years of teaching here. There is so much that you can teach people, like skill set, how to sew, how to read a script, how to understand a schedule, how to read a call sheet, how to communicate with actors and to be respectful, but also be felt, how to take up space. But I can't teach people how to have an initiative. I can't teach people how to be interested. I can't teach people how to have a passion for something. So if someone can come to me with those three things and we have a space on my team, I would take that over someone who's like gone and studied this for a living and is like, oh, I just now, because there's an entitlement that comes with that. And I'm not saying that everyone who studied costume or fashion or textiles shouldn't be given opportunities, not at all. You need people with those skill sets, but you equally need people who have natural, like transferable skills that can play its way into a team. We are constantly talking to actors. If my actors have a really horrible conversation with it, if my team has a horrible conversation with an actor in the morning, that actor's thrown for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And that's on us. So someone who's got good people skills, who knows how to have a chat, but also knows how to read a room and be like, they're not in the best place today. So I've just left their costume in and I'll just check them on set. That's the kind of thing
like
you need.
You having your desk at the other side of your new office where you're like, I need to be left alone.
Yeah. I'm such a hermit.
It's fine, we like that. But again, it's like it goes into what you're saying about the woman who's in her 40s and she came with this hunger and this thirst and this drive. And that's what I want to see from people. Like you can have all of the credentials in the world, but unless you turn up correct and with a desire to do your best, don't come at all.
And some humility.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's people always drinking cups of tea. Someone's going to have to wash those cups.
Yeah.
You know, I'm as likely to wash cups as I'm as likely to ask someone else to wash cups. I'm not the kind of person who won't do what if I'm saying the dishes are done, can someone do the dishes? The same way I'll be like, the dishes are done, I'm just going to do them.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, one of my supervisors like, oh, no, people will do. I was like, no, everyone's got stuff to do.
Yeah.
I can take 5 minutes out and I can do it. You know, but I've had once where someone was like, oh, no, but my nails. And I was like, sis, really? We want to talk about nails? Okay. But you won't be back tomorrow. It's as simple as that.
No, but it's like you've got to have that realness.
Yeah.
And actually getting your own, like as somebody going into work, have the right mindset because people remember you for the things that you've done in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like you want to be remembered for the great things that you do as an individual, the way you come up to work.
Yeah.
Correct. Because those are the people that actually 10 years down the line, you're going to go, do you know, we've not worked together for ages, but I remember that person being
so good,
so incredible. And it's just, you know, when I got my job at Burberry, that was only because I'd worked on the shop floor at Selfridges for 3 months. I went to the VM team and said, can I work with you for 1 day a week for free? Because I'm already on the shop floor.
Yeah.
And I got to learn about the industry for 3 months. And then somebody put me forward for a job at Burberry that I had zero experience for. But I got it because I walked into that room and I was like, I'm hungry for this.
Yeah.
And again, like that's now the foundation of a 17-year career.
This is what I'm talking about. Once you've shown up and shown that you can contribute, it's so easy to remain employed.
Yeah.
Because word of mouth will travel. The same way someone put you forward for a job, it's the same way my assistant designer, Misty D. Griffiths, I got called, BFI are doing a film, it's like a 1.5 mil film with a young new director. Could I think of anyone who I thought would be good to design this film project? And I said, you know what? If you're wanting someone to step up, Misty's amazing.
Yeah.
And like, I'm waiting to find the right job for her to do her first design job on. Like, if you want, like, I think you should reach out to Misty. Misty's now designing that film.
Right.
And they start shooting a week on Monday, you know? Because if you don't know you don't know the opportunities that are going to come your way via someone else.
Yeah.
All you can do is put your best self forward every day you step out.
100%.
You know? And I mean, to be fair, I should say to Misty, I'm basically just helping you design this job because you're calling me every day, asking me, what should I do about this? Or what do I do? And then the producer's asking me this. I'm like, woman, you now have to start making your own decisions because I'm on holiday.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to take some time off.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Talking about meaningful change in the TV and film industry, what have you seen happen over the kind of past 2 or so years that you think has led the right impact?
So there's a group called the Black Costume Network that started during lockdown, and it's actually really amazing to be in a virtual space with other people like me who are doing this thing as a job. Vivienne won an Emmy this year for The Great, which you supervised.
Oh, cool.
And it's, you know, every there seems to be so many of us working. The industry's super busy, yes, but there's so many of us working and doing projects that are like, you know, really important. They're doing a Bob Marley film at the minute, and Sekou is the assistant designing on that, and he's about to take half my team with him to go to Jamaica and film. And you know, there's so many. You can see now that because we're all employed, there are so many opportunities.
Yeah.
And we are communicating amongst ourselves, like, what have you got going on? What have you got going on? Do you need team? I'm like, you can borrow my team, but I need them back when I start back working. Okay, you can borrow my team, but I need them back. You know what I mean? It's that this sort of like, it feels really inspiring to be part of a group of people who seem to be having a really positive effect on an industry. And it's not just trainees, it's not just in costume, it's in lighting, it's in DOPs, it's in, you know, camera,
it's a community.
Yeah.
These incredible workers who are now being given the opportunities, but you're sharing them amongst yourselves. Not because you're trying to squirrel anything away.
No, it's about sharing. It's about making the community as strong as it can be. And the community can't be strong if you hold everything to yourself. The strength of your community is when your whole community is thriving.
Yeah. So
if I'm thriving, but everyone else is eating cornflakes, I'm really not thriving. Because it's a false reality, right? If we're all thriving, okay, now this is how it's meant to be. We're all meant to be able to eat, you know. So yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about contrast between the US and the UK when it comes to TV and film. Do you think that there is much contrast in terms of, you know, behind the scenes about the differences that are being made?
So I think that we're a little bit more. So I had a lot of chats with like agents in LA, and what kept coming up was that, oh, well, you know, a lot of people ask for diverse hires. And I was like, so it's not about whether I'm good or not. It's about the fact that I'm a diverse hire. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And that also seems to not be a solution to the problem, because it's just like we just take whatever's on the top and we just feed it into whatever we're doing. But no one's bothered about the grassroots and actually like building from the foundation up. It shouldn't be about the fact that you're messaging an agent going, we're looking for a DP, who do you have that's diverse? Who do you have that hits this quota? It should be, we're looking for a DP, who do you have who's available, whose work is in line with what our directors wanting to do? I think here, and you know, I haven't worked out in America in a little bit, but I think here there's definitely much more being done about building talent, about building the foundation on which the talent can grow from. And that's partly the production companies who are taking it upon themselves, but also with their like diversity quotas that they have in their fucking like agendas for the year or whatever, but also the heads of department taking it upon themselves. A really good friend of mine, Ali Panku, she's the director. She always has a shadow director with her.
Okay.
She always makes the production company fork out a fee for someone who is POC or LGBTQIA plus to come and shadow her throughout the entire process. That's change.
Yeah.
That's like seeing it not from the person, not from this level, but also seeing it from this level and seeing it from this level and having access to all spaces. So I think we are doing stuff in the UK. We've got, the Screen Skills Trainee Program. We have a lot of, the BFI Step Up Program. There's lots of programs there to help. But I think, we've, as a community, we're doing it.
Yeah.
So they're the institutions that are doing it, but us as a community, we're doing it.
And I think actually institutions, when we look at learning institutions, organizations and businesses and the fashion industry and creative sector, we need to do better because actually it shouldn't just be left to us behind the scenes as a, black or brown community to be having to talk to each other like we're sending, carrier pigeons with notes. Like actually it should be the bigwigs in these offices at different levels of seniority who are making these meaningful changes that carry purpose and then aren't a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
And I think,
but whilst we wait for that to happen, you just take it upon yourself to do what you must.
Yeah.
And I think no one's going to care about you the way you care about you, the way your community cares about you. And so I think if you, I talk a lot about this idea that we think that, and this is more for people who are coming up, but like this idea that you think you have to aspire to work with this designer or this photographer, and actually your peer group is an incredible resource.
Yeah.
So rather than waiting for someone to give you an opportunity, you create your own opportunities within that space. And that's what we do as a community of people. We're like, okay, while we're waiting for the institutions to finally
catch up
and see that they have not just like a financial obligation, but like a moral obligation to do better.
Yeah.
Whilst we're waiting for them to do better, we'll do better.
Yeah.
And we'll create the space. We'll have like open forums where we bring people that we know into a space and be like, have a conversation and let people come in and listen to you guys chat. And you know what I mean? Like that's where the change starts,
In the words of the great Beyonce. Sorry, I've got to. Sorry. But like she said, like if the stage doesn't exist, build it. And I think that in itself is so important because I wouldn't have launched Fashion Minority Report unless I'd have heard that, if I'm honest, because it made me go, actually step outside of your comfort zone and do something that you could be good at.
Yeah.
And actually I'm able to sit here with you today. And that's, reasons again of like FACE creating a community of, academics trying to lead the change.
Yeah.
Just kind of going back to We Are Lady Parts, how did that opportunity come about?
I met Nida through a friend of mine who's a production designer, and we met, had a meeting, really vibed. I got the character profiles from her of the main characters from the show, and I put together a deck and I sent it over. And next thing we know, here we are with the show. I think it worked really. It was kind of like one of those meetings of being in the right place at the right time to connect with someone. I'm very great. I mean, I love Nida. Nida's she's got an amazing mind and she's so unassuming.
Yeah. And
the most collaborative of directors that I've worked with. She has an opinion, but she respects what it is that we all bring to the table. And so you feel like you're cradled to be your best self,
But you embody that.
Oh, well, thank you. What time is it?
We've got one more question for you, and then we're done.
No, I've not.
You've got somewhere to be.
No. Not that I've got somewhere to be, but I do wanna open up to these guys because I would like to.
Fine, actually, yeah. So instead of me talking or you answering, does anybody have a question from the audience? Oh, crickets! Come on, guys. Dig deep. Find something. Oh, there we go. Hi.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. Mm. 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 So when I decided to quit my job here, the underlying thought that went through my mind was, who would my kids go to now? Because there's so few of us teaching in this institution, right? But the institution itself has to do better. The institution itself has to hire more Black and brown people, not just as cleaners and security guards, which I was saying all the time. It's like I go to the canteen, I can see bare Black and brown faces, and I go into a lecture theatre, and it's crickets. So I think the institution has a responsibility, but I think we as tutors have a responsibility to our students. And part of that is going, I'm not necessarily the best person to talk to about this problem, but I can introduce you to this person who might be able to help. At the time, a lot of students were coming to me, but David's part of FACE. Bernie Yates, who works with the Widening Participation Programme, is an amazing resource. And sending them to places where those individuals might not be able to help, but they are trained in the resources of where we can find help. I think sometimes we have to remember that we can't do everything. I can't be tutor, I can't be big sister, I can't be mum, I can't be best mate, I can't be. So I can't be therapist. When you recognize the limitations to what it is that you're able to offer, understanding that there are spaces here that have been created to help when students are feeling like they're not being seen, when they're feeling like they're not being heard, when they're feeling like they're being subjected to erasure of some sort based on like what they look like, how they present. It's up to we need to take advantage of the resources that the university has put in place, because you've got tutors. I remember talking to a tutor who was booked to do tutoring for the WP program as additional tutoring. And I was like, how many kids did you have on Friday? And he was like, 2. And I was like, well, there's 35 alone in my group. And I know that we have loads in Helmut's group. But why are they not coming? They didn't know that he was there for them to go and see, And so we have to, but he's still being paid to be there every Friday, whether it's one student who turns up or 40 students who turns up. And so we've got to take advantage of the resources that university has put in place to help give students the confidence to deal with. I mean, no one can ever really, dealing with racism is not something that you have like confidence in doing, but to have the confidence to speak their truth. And I think that's about empowering people. And by signposting them to where they can go to feel empowered, their truth can come out. And once that's out, we can do better to help, build bridges, make changes, all of that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Any other questions in the room?
First, congratulations.
Thanks.
PC was, I think, 2 years above me.
I was.
And just seeing your journey, I think, is amazingly inspiring.
Thank you.
And what I want to ask, I wanted to ask you, so you've made the transition from working in textiles and knitwear and moving to a completely different area. What kind of gave you the confidence to move into that space? Because obviously it's transferable skill, but you're using a different eye. And also, what is the importance of, because I haven't worked in costume design, but having that representation there, telling our stories, what's the importance of having, you must have come against some different situations, but what's the importance of having yourself as a Black costume designer in that space, retaining those important stories?
So I think, so the first question, how was I able to move across? There's only one me. And I believe that with my chest. And I say, no one else does or can do what it is that I do or will do. So if you have that confidence in yourself, if I wanted to, I can go and try to have a career in something totally different. Because I know that if it's something that I've chosen and I apply myself, I will succeed. So there is that. I have this unwavering confidence in self. I didn't necessarily know a lot about costume design. I know about clothes. I know about stories. I know about people. I know about working as a part of a team. And I know about taking the lead on something. So why can't I succeed in this field? Do you know what I mean? Because it's those things. I just have to be aware of those 5 things and boom, I'm good. And so whether it was going from designing textiles to designing costumes, I'm using the skills that I've always had. I've always been someone who likes to chat. Ask Bernie, she'll tell you. We'd go into our crits and it would be like, you know, ask my students, they'll tell you. So talking is no problem. Having ideas is no problem. Breaking down other people's perceptions of me is no problem. You know, I had a tutor in this building who genuinely, me and her could not see eye to eye. She didn't understand what I was coming from. I couldn't give a shit about her opinion. It was very much a two-way street. If I now believed what she believed about me, babe, I'd be stacking shelves in Sainsbury's. It's God's honest truth. At some point, you've got to say, your opinion of me is none of my business. My opinion of me is my business. And this isn't to say that you don't listen to what the tutors and your students are saying, because it's a two-way learning process. I always said that teaching here wasn't necessarily always about me teaching my students stuff, but about us learning together.
Yeah.
I learned as much from my students as my students, if not more, than my students would have learned from me. So I think going into a different space is just a space adjacent as opposed to a completely different. So yeah, I've never been someone who's like scared or worried that I'm not going to be successful if I decide this is what I want to do. And so that's how I approach this. So yeah.
Thank you for the question. And thank you for today.
Oh my God, are we out of time?
Yeah.
We are.
Next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Take care.